Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Who's Your Band podcast. We have a great show for you guys this week. I'm so glad you guys stick around and watching us. Numbers are going up. We're really happy about that. But today, we are going to start off with the one, the only. You've seen her on Women of a Certain Age. You've seen her on Tough Crowd. Give it up for Vanessa Hollingshead.
Yay!
Thank you for that, Sean. How are you, Vanessa?
This has been brutal. This has really been hard on me.
It really has, man. What have you been up to?
I've been with my boyfriend in Long Island. I've been laying bricks. I've been doing pavers. I've been doing yard work, housework, cooking. Like I feel like a housewife. I went from like independent comedian housewife, carpenter, bricklayer.
Were you always that type of person? Were you always working out in the garden and doing housework, or because of this pandemic,
Never.
now you've picked up a new skill?
I got really depressed, and if I did like yard work or lay bricks or the rock music on, I knew it would keep me from getting depressed because I'm like depressed. It has not been easy. I'm like a people person, and I don't find the Zoom comedy at all, conducive to my mental well-being at all.
No, you need
very hard.
Stand-up comedy. We know is a contact sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people don't need that.
Yeah,
they're loading tons of content on their Facebook or Instagram, and they're perfectly okay.
So that's a good way to kind of segue into the question I wanted to ask you is, what do you think the future of comedy holds now, going forward from this point on? What do you think is going to happen?
I'm really frightened. When I worked at Dangerfields, on a weekend, I got $50 for a full show, packed, 50. Weekday, 25. So I'm really afraid that once things start up in the comedy clubs, the pay is going to be cut in half because they're going to be doing social distancing. And then for ships, there's some talk that, for the cruise lines, there's some talk that they're going to go down on that, even though no comic has gotten a raise in 9 years.
It's a scary time right now. It really is. But before this, you were doing great, man. You had a special. I wanted to ask you about that as well. How was it filming a Women of a Certain Age special? How was that?
The last thing that happened was the ratings had gone through the roof. Every time we do a show, we'd get a sold out show, and then we'd have to do another sold out show. And then all of a sudden, after 27 years of working like a dog, to get to a certain level, everything in one day, it's like it stopped.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden I went from like, and then, I was talking to my boyfriend. It's like, you perform for a few people. And it's like, you don't understand, as a comedian, you keep trying to build your audience to perform for more people. And to go back to performing for like 20 people kind of laughing is like being an open micer again. It's, debilitating.
How many years were you at it? How many years have you been working professionally as a comedian?
28 years. March 31st made 28 years I was a comedian. And I never went more than 2 weeks. Even on my honeymoon with Lucian, I performed in Amsterdam and Paris when we were on our honeymoon. I never went more than 2 weeks without being a performer.
I mean, I think this is setting a record for everybody. How did the whole Women of a Certain Age special, how did that all come about? Like, how did you get picked to be on it? How many shows did you wind up having to film?
I just got off a cruise, and I had gotten reprimanded for doing some jokes that they thought weren't, PC. And I literally reached a point where it's like, I spent 2 years in my stateroom on the ships on either Royal Caribbean or Norwegian, trying to figure out what I did wrong, and just Googling like Illuminati, PC language, how's comedy changing, what's happening in comedy, young people in comedy, what people find funny. Like every night I go to bed watching this. And I'm telling you, Whoopi Goldberg literally saved my life because I was ready to get out. I was ready to work at Starbucks. And she said, you can either let this make you bitter and make you get angry, or you could start working smarter. And I was like a light bulb went off, and I thought, you know what? Let me make fun of the Europeans and let me make fun of myself. because I need to make a living. And then Carol said, we're doing a show at the Crane Theater for funny women of a certain age. There's going to be a lot of older women, men, basically women. And I had just gotten off a cruise. My hair was curly. I was depressed. I had been on that keto diet where you like don't have any carbs. Okay. I've been doing that for a week. Maybe I lost half a pound. I was getting really discouraged. And there was like this Kaiser bakery with like the almond croissant, and I'm like, fuck it. I'm done. My hair was curly. I had t-shirt, had jeans on. And I just saw this audience of like women and men that just wanted to laugh. I did all this crowd work. I did my material. I had no idea that 9 of them were from Showtime.
Wow.
And I
that's
killed.
probably a good thing
I had
that
one of
you
those
did it.
killer shots. And then Carol called me up and she goes, we got the show. We got the show because of your French porn bit.
I
How was that?
you do that bit. That is amazing. That's really funny.
And you know what the great part was too, and Vanessa won't tell you this, but I'll tell you this. I personally, I love Vanessa like my big sister. I wouldn't be anywhere in my career without her. And and Carol Montgomery's another one who's been absolutely amazing to me. And Carol told me firsthand, face to face, when I knew I was getting the show, the first person that I was booking on that show was Vanessa.
That's a nice story. That leads me into something that, a good segue. I know you and Vanessa are good friends, that you work together. Vanessa, I have a question for you. Do you have a particular Sean Morton road story?
Oh my God.
Is Vanessa
I can't
alive?
tell you how he was awful to me.
Really? Get out. No, he's so sweet and cuddly.
No, when I had to pee, Sean.
Listen.
When I had to pee, he filmed it when I had to pee.
I was nice enough. I was nice enough to pick up Vanessa at her house in New York City. It was in a great area, and we were going up to Utica, New York for the Turning Stone Casino. I just made it to the Bronx, and she asked me to pee. And then I also added 7 more times, a 230-mile trip. I had to stop for Vanessa to pee.
Did you have to film it and humiliate me?
I did. I know I had to make an example out of you because you know what? As great as you've been to me, you are without a doubt the big sister I never wanted. I had to torture you in some way. So I had to show my fan base why it took me 4 hours longer than it should have taken me because I had to stop for fucking old pissy pants Patty over here 7 times.
Okay, that's what I went through. Okay, trying to help him out. Trying to, do the right thing by Sean. Humiliated because I drank too much coffee.
Where did you get your start in comedy? How old were you and where did you start?
I was 31 and I lied about my age to Lucian. I told him that I was 29. And I had.
Now for people who don't know, Lucian was
the artistic director of the comic strip, and we eventually ended up getting married. And he died in 2004 of scleroderma. And all I know is that I had to get past at that club, and I was doing comedy around the clock. And my friend, it was my roommate Colette that said, I watch all these sitcoms, and you're so much funnier when you talk about your day at work. Why don't you try comedy? Like, you got to be crazy, Colette. This isn't gonna work.
What
and
kind of
sure
work
enough,
were you doing?
I was a secretary. I was a word processor. I typed like 80 words a minute.
In New York City?
Mm-hmm. And then I started working
at a package from
Gladys's.
Amazon next week, just so you know, Vanessa, to get you a tripod so you can keep the goddamn phone steady, for Christ's sake.
One of the sweetest things with Sean and Gia was I went through a lot of problems with the relationship years ago. And it was probably the sweetest thing I ever saw was like a healthy relationship where someone called each other babe and helped each other out. You know
what would help me out? If you took your thumb off the camera.
It's my thumb. Oh God. Okay, sorry.
So finish the story. So now you're 31 years old and your roommate tells you, hey, you're funnier than people on TV. And so you go to the comic strip and you figure you got to try and get past it.
No, to go to comedy club and there's 36 comedians and I invite everybody from the office, all the girls from the office. and I wait really 4 hours, and 36 comics later, I must have had about 8 cups of coffee and pretzel sticks. And I went on, did my set. And the second I just like got on stage, I was like, I'm home. This feels right. And I thought the only person I have to rely on to get better is me. I don't need to rely on actors, directors, producers. I just have to get good at what I do. And that was such a turning point for me. And that was the beginning of like my life changing. Within 2 years, I had a huge development deal, and from a showcase at Caroline's.
That's a great story. And so you're growing up, and we know this ahead of time now. You were a big Beatles fan?
Oh my God, huge. And my dad actually gave LSD to Paul McCartney.
How did that happen?
He had given it. I just finished doing a show. A book has just come out of my dad called The Divine Rascal. It got huge rave reviews. And my dad had given LSD to Paul McCartney, but it was Tim Leary that got all the credit. And my dad literally got ostracized from history during that period as though he never existed. And I kept, after 1998, when my development deal fell through and I realized that nothing was going to happen, I started working on a one-woman show. And then Andy Roberts, the guy who wrote The Divine Rascal, flew me to London to talk about my dad. And now I just finished writing a show about him that took literally 4 months to finish, 20 years of slowly working on. And he met Paul McCartney, and Paul McCartney lived in like a high castle. He wasn't getting along with the Beatles. He like had it like a high tower in Scotland, and he had like a bowling ball. My dad, gave him a little bit of acid. This is like 1966, 67, before he went to prison.
That's early. That's early in the Beatles' history. That's like around the Revolver time.
Right, and that's where Tomorrow Never Knows, and Tomorrow Never Knows was written by John Lennon, because Paul McCartney got the LSD to John Lennon, and Tomorrow Never Knows was from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which inspired John Lennon to write Tomorrow Never Knows. And Dr. Roberts was a doctor that was giving people, I don't know if it was LSD or methamphetamine, but it was quite a time during that period.
Yeah.
So that's
and that's when the Beatles really kind of changed their look, and going from like the clean cut mop tops to be growing the beards out, and
from I Want to Hold Your Hand to I'm the Walrus. They just made that transition.
Exactly.
The same with the Stones, the same with a lot of rock groups.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And really, it all kind of starts with the Beach Boys recording Pet Sounds, and everybody wanted to become experimental and opening up their heads.
Yes. Yeah, it was a huge progressive time, but like, Tim Leary was a Harvard psychologist, Richard Alpert, who became Baba Ramdas, Harvard psychologist, my dad, extraordinarily bright. These really well-knowledge men that got basically forgotten in the annals of history as like LSD, hippies, when they were Harvard psychologists.
Yeah.
And what I gave them a voice. So, but through all of this, when you like Tim Leary's kids one of them has nothing to do with him. His wife committed suicide. His daughter committed suicide and shot her husband. So it's like every kid from this period, while they were, preaching free love and, take acid, turn on, tune in, drop out, the kids got left behind. And I was one of the kids that got left behind, but was the straight daughter. I didn't end up developing a drinking problem until when I turned 44, when I was to become very much like my dad and have some of the same afflictions and addictions that he had.
What were the similarities there? What caused you to go from becoming a secretary, doing stand-up, and then 13 years later getting this drinking problem?
It was more like 16 years later when Lucian died. I remember all I did was he loved wine. I never had one drink with him. And he said it would be nice if he had a drink of wine. And I said, Lucian, it takes like cough medicine, no desire. I'm not interested. And then as he was dying, as he was getting sicker and sicker, I remember I was literally making him like a some fancy like French wine sauce with cream, just kind of fatten him up. He'd gotten down to about 130 pounds. And I thought, oh, fuck it, let me have a glass of wine. And this is someone that barely drank. This is someone that vowed never to be like their dad, was straight-laced, drank coffee, smoked cigarettes, didn't even smoke pot, didn't do drugs, straight-laced. Did comedy nonstop, bit of a workaholic, and if anything, had like a sugar addiction. And I remember I just had one glass of wine, drank the whole thing down, and all of a sudden, like, the world went from being a dark place to being in color. And it was very, I just would have a glass here and there. And then by the time a year had passed and solution passed, I probably went from maybe 2 or 3 glasses of wine a night to, I was to wind up drinking 2.5 bottles and risking dying, and had to get sent off to a rehab, just like my dad. My dad never went to a rehab, but like him, I had the addict gene.
Let me tell you, I have seen both versions, and this is my favorite version of Vanessa.
How long do you know Vanessa?
He's seen me pretty bad.
How long? Well, I'm doing comedy 12 years, so it's got to be about 11.
Yeah.
How did you guys meet?
I booked a show. I used to book a room, and
I'll never forget that.
I used to book a room in Watchung at the Colorado Cafe. It was one of the weirdest gigs you ever have in your life. It was a bar stage, and was surrounded by the bar, and then ahead of you was an actual mechanical bull. So I was booking Thursday night shows there, and I had heard of Vanessa. I reached out to her, and actually Sharon Simon was actually the one who brought Vanessa out there.
Oh, wow.
She's good friends with Sharon.
We just had a show 2 weeks ago.
We hit
Remember
it off.
John Fierro? I was dating John Fierro, that Italian guy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he came to the show. Mm-hmm.
So we just hit it off, and then
as opposed to John Fierro, the Jewish guy.
Yeah, exactly. Good joke, Jeff.
Such a dick.
Jesus Christ. Way to fucking derail a conversation.
Speaking of which, my cat needs to get spayed. Just saying.
Well, bring him in. The office is still open. Bring him in.
In Staten Island. Take a ferry? Okay.
Yeah, it's right over the ferry.
Okay.
But, I said in the beginning of the show that, and it's the truth. No one in my career has helped me out as much as Vanessa. And, as far as booking me, booking me on the road with her to open. But for once, it was one specific night, and we all have those turning points in your career. And this was my first big turning point. Vanessa was working down in Bristol, Pennsylvania, and I was hosting for her, and she was headlining. And the booker there is a nice guy, but for some reason just doesn't like comedians, and he thinks he's funnier than everybody. Which he's a nice guy, but he made a comment to me and said something to the effect of, "You're always going to host here." And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. So then right before the show, Vanessa pulled me aside. I don't even know if she remembers this. She goes,
probably not.
I want you to do me a favor tonight. And I said, what's that? She goes, I want you to blow me out of the fucking water. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, don't ever let anybody tell you what you can do in comedy. I want you to blow me out of the water tonight. And I went up there and I went guns blazing hosting. I brought the middle guy up, and then I brought Vanessa up, and she crushed it as usual. And after the weekend, the guy pulled me aside and said, I gotta take that back. I'm gonna give you the bump to feature next time that you're over here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there's been many a weekend where Vanessa and I have been on the road, killing time at malls together, watching movies, and tons of stuff.
Now, sure, obviously, you're a big music guy. Before like the whole thing, you did, did you guys go to like record shops? Did you do that stuff together?
No, I would torture Vanessa by playing death metal in the car.
Yeah. How about some of the songs you like?
I would play some, and
some
there wasn't even that.
You like.
Yeah.
Like Dead Skulls Come to Life. Like it was some of those awful things.
Yeah, it really wasn't. It was just Godsmack. But it was according to Vanessa, it was I was trying to make her into a Satan worshiper.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, I even sent her a video yesterday of a huge like 4-minute mosh pit collaboration of like 17 different mosh pit videos, people slamming into each other. I always tell her I'm going to take her to one of those shows one day.
Vanessa, what was your favorite Beatles album? You have one?
I'd probably have to say Revolver.
Wow. Okay.
That's a great pick, though.
Eleanor Rigby.
Eleanor Rigby was it reminded me of parts of my life where it was a rainy night and I'd broken up with somebody and I didn't, or I thought about all the lonely people, you know?
Yeah.
It was such a prophetic song. And then Your Daybreak, and then For No One was kind of like my parents' marriage.
And what songs really kind of like stick out to you? Like I mean, it's the Beatles, so it's impossible to do. We never ask you to give me topic. But what?
I'd probably say Dear Prudence.
Off the White Album, yeah.
Dear Prudence. The Long and Winding Road. I remember being on a train with my best friend Gracie, and there was nobody on the train. There was nobody on the train car, and Gracie and I just started singing The Long and Winding Road together, waiting to go from Marcy Avenue all the way into Brooklyn. Just a beautiful memory. And I guess when Lucian passed away, this isn't one of the Beatles songs, but Paul McCartney did it, My Love. I remember when Lucian died, I used to listen to My Love and literally just start sobbing.
It's funny how music kind of does that, where songs take you to a real clear image in your life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Come Together, I love. Come Together was literally written, it was written when they had the bed-in, when Yoko Ono and John Lennon were in Montreal with Tim Leary and his wife. I think it was Rosemary Woodard.
Did you remember when they came out with a whole bunch of like remastered stuff in the middle 90s, and they came out with 2 singles that were found, Free as a Bird and Real Love.
Yeah.
I love both those songs. How about you?
I thought they were okay. It was like, I thought there's a reason why they didn't release them, because they were okay. The Beatles did excellent material. I mean, Real Love is nothing like Here Comes the Sun.
But that was also a Harrison song.
Okay, Martha, My Dear, even,
See, you gotta look at one thing too, as far as the history of the Beatles. Like now what they're doing now in some hospitals when COVID-19 patients are being released, they're actually playing Here Comes the Sun over the loudspeakers while they're being wheeled out to be discharged from the hospitals as well too.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Really? No,
Yeah,
I had no idea.
A lot of hospitals in New York are playing Here Comes the Sun, and they take video and everybody cheers all the patients after they're recovered and they're on the way out, while they're pushing them out towards the exit, so they can actually see the sun. That's the song they play over the loudspeaker.
Very appropriate song to play.
Yes, every time somebody hears it, they realize that somebody's recovered, somebody's beat it, and then that way they can actually go out and start life again.
Now, Vanessa, have you ever seen any inclination of the Beatles, whether it be just like McCartney on his own or Ringo's all-star band? Did you ever go see anything like that?
I saw the Traveling Wilburys when I did Foxwoods, or I did Foxwoods, and Todd Rundgren and Ringo Starr was there, and Ringo Starr did Photograph, and Photograph is one of my favorite songs ever done. It reminds me of all the things, all the people I lost, and so many times all I have is a photograph to remember them by. And Ringo, like, to me, he was the Beatle that was, all he wanted to do was make enough money to keep a hair salon going for his mom. Like, Ringo to me was the humblest of the Beatles. And Pete Best, I don't know if you know this, Pete Best was the drummer.
Sure.
And he was the drummer that was cuter than Paul McCartney. And Paul McCartney couldn't stand the fact that at the Cavern, all the girls wanted to see Pete Best. So there was this, I saw this documentary where they found something wrong with his timing, with Pete Best's timing with his drums, with one song, I can't even remember the song. And one of the Beatles producers said, "I'm sorry, but your timing is off. We're going to let you go." And it was only to get rid of him to bring in Ringo because Ringo wasn't so cute. And Pete Best, when I saw this documentary on Pete Best, he ended up having like a band, a session band like the Beatles, or like a tribute band like the Beatles, but it wasn't the Beatles. And I learned more about spirituality and acceptance and love from that video than probably sitting in church for about 5 years, where he just accepted the fact that it wasn't meant to be, that he had a family, that he had love, that he stayed in Liverpool, and that he had a tribute band. And he knew that he got screwed, but he accepted it. It was one of the most brilliant shows I'd ever seen. It was like on PBS.
It's kind of like Wally Pipp, who wanted to lose his job to Lou Gehrig.
Right. And all of a sudden, Paul McCartney didn't become so cute to me. Paul McCartney was okay looking. He was okay. But he wasn't like Pete Best to me, for my money, had developed spiritually and had developed a level of humility that I could only hope to achieve. And then with reading about Cynthia Lennon's autobiography about Lennon, you know, there they were, Yoko and John were having sex in John's house, and they all had they wore the purple, bathrobes. And Cynthia Lennon walks in, sees Yoko with John wearing her purple bathrobe, and she literally just packs up and leaves. So, you know, John was wasn't that great either. So as I began to read more and more about the Beatles, it was kind of like George, who became really spiritual, and studied like, did All Things Must Pass, tried to raise money for people in Bangladesh with the concert of Bangladesh, and Ringo. For my money, the kind of Beatles that were on the outside that probably became the most spiritual and deepest and, active and kindest Beatles than those two, the ones that I originally loved and that I'm pretty sure everyone else loved.
Okay. Hey, everybody, we are joined by Pat Dixon. Welcome, Pat.
Hey, Jeffrey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
And I don't know if you know my co-host. Do you know Sean Morton?
I feel like we've met, but nice to see you, Sean, and thanks for having me.
I feel very underdressed. Thank you.
Vanessa, right?
Yep. Yeah, we know. Well, we know each other.
All right.
Well, hey, Vanessa, how are you? I loved what you were just saying. That was really, really interesting. You don't hear too many people sharing a lot of love for Pete Best. It usually doesn't go quite down to.
I love Pete Best.
So that's really cool.
And you said he's great, isn't he? I'm glad.
I know nothing of him. I just know he was the one who didn't come along for the ride. That's really all I know.
They screwed him so badly. They said, Pete, you're off by 1/8 of a beat on your drums. And it was a big lie.
But the underlying story was that McCartney was jealous of Pete Best.
Jealous that he was better looking and every girl wanted him.
Right.
Wow.
Much like Jeffrey is very jealous of me being better looking and funnier.
It's exactly
understandable, I'm afraid.
It really is.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, Pat is the host of a great show called the New York City Crime Report.
Yes.
And I love Pat. Pat is an interesting guy. First of all, I've never seen him with this much hair. And
it's ridiculous, right?
It is. And second of all, Pat, question before we start getting into music and everything. I know you're well-read guy, smart guy. What do you think about the job that the mayor and the governor are doing during this pandemic?
Well, it depends on what their goals are. I mean, if they're trying to kill as many old people as possible, I'd say they're doing a great job.
Great job. Oh, I'm furious. I'm furious that we had the comfort, the 1,000 beds, and 182 got used, and then half the people, half the elderly in the Elmhurst nursing home died.
Yeah, it's almost as if they everything he did was intentional. I mean, in March he was telling us to go down to Chinatown and hug Chinese people. I don't know if one case was spread that way. It just seems like a sort of a reckless thing, a message to have, But de Blasio's got his scapegoat now, I guess, which would be the Hasidic community. And I mean, if you start comparing the mismanagement among all these people, it gets to be there's a lot of competition for worst.
It makes you really feel optimistic about the future, huh?
Oh,
but don't you think he should? Don't you think like Cuomo should at least apologize and say, "Listen, I was in over my head. I should not have given the order that it's okay for for elderly with COVID to come back
I-
into the nursing homes?
No, I think he should resign and be charged with negligent manslaughter, negligent homicide. You know, I mean,
Then
like that's
who do you think should take over?
Donald Trump.
Step down.
But
from
he's
president
president.
to
He can't
governor.
be president and governor of New York. Like he can't do both at once.
I really don't know. I don't know. I haven't thought it through that much. It doesn't seem like a realistic possibility. Cuomo's very popular somehow.
He's extremely popular. I think that, and I made a post about this a couple of weeks ago. I said, had this pandemic happened 6 months ago, do you think they would have really pushed him to run for president, to run for the nomination?
I think it could maybe, yeah. I mean, like he certainly is a lot more with it and a lot less controversial than Biden at this point, isn't he?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I keep thinking every time I watch the de Blasio briefings in the morning and I see the Weird Al Yankovic guy in the corner, I just keep saying to myself, I wonder if he's actually doing proper sign language or if he's just saying this guy's a fucking jerk off the whole time. I really
Did you see that
Yeah.
woman do sign language for one of the governors? I can't remember. I think it was the governor of
I think it was New Jersey, Murphy.
New Jersey. She was disgusted. You could tell that she was the woman doing the sign language was like disgusted. It's almost like she was going like that. I mean, it was the funniest thing. Like she was disgusted by this woman talking about keeping everybody safe. I just think I'm frightened in New Jersey. Have you seen this, Sean, with his drones that are going around? Stay in your house. You can get.
Well, I live here, so it's kind of frightening.
It's like 1984.
Yeah, it's a little weird, and I think that we're going to wind up being closed a lot longer than
You are going to wind up being closed a lot longer because you got a governor that's worth $50 million that has no problem with you staying inside.
Right.
He can wait out.
But
a
they can
pandemic
go
for a
out,
couple
yeah.
of years.
But he's got a nice mouthful of urinals. I will tell you that, though.
Let me
Handsome
ask you
man.
this. What frightens me more, because I've been watching the news around the clock. What frightens me more, not so much the governors are seizing all this newfound power that people can't even have little kids can't even have a play date, or people can't even go to Home Depot and get some plants or, seeds, is that we're so blithely going along. The American public is just like sheep. We become sheep. That's what's frightening me.
Not in Michigan.
Yeah,
No,
not
not in
me.
Michigan.
I'm out of my house 3 times a week. 3 or 4 times a week I leave my house.
Do you wear your
Yeah.
mask?
I wear a mask. I wear a bandana. I make sure I have hand sanitizer. When I come home, I take it off. I wash my hands. I get my clothes in the wash. I go in the shower. I decontaminate. And you know what?
Wow.
I'm better off than a lot of people. I'm
Yeah.
happy. I'm growing a garden right now. I'm baking.
You really should have been washing your hands before. I mean,
I never did. Pat, it was kind of weird. Like there was this weird film that started coming off my hands. Apparently, I'm not black. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. I don't see color, but
Yes.
sometimes you don't feel as comfortable once you wash. Like it just depends. On what you've been doing, I guess.
But it is a mental thing. Like I have to, as soon as I get home, I have to rip the clothes off and jump right in the shower. I would never do that 6 months ago.
Now, Sean, I'm not sure if you know this, but Pat is basically the inspiration for doing this show.
Really?
Yeah, Pat and I would together in Greenwich, and I don't know if you remember, Pat. We were hanging out in the
I do.
backstage, in the green room, and we were talking all night about music and the Beatles and the Stones, and I was like, I would love to explore this further and really find out why, where did this passion for the Stones come from? So Pat, now that I got you on the show, where did the passion for the Stones come from?
Man,
What did you think of the thing they did with the Stones, the 4 Stones doing that? Okay.
I don't know, man. That's my 100th thing to talk about. I mean, although it was interesting and good and everything, but I don't, whatever. As far as getting into them goes, Hot Rocks, I think, was the first album that I had, right? It was one of those volumes, and it's just a big compilation album, and you realize, man, every song on here is good. And I'm a teenager, and I know all about not getting any satisfaction and all that, and then the rest of it you kind of piece together. What's great about the Stones to me that I didn't really realize until later on, because there's layers with the Stones too. I mean, they've been around so long. They've
Right.
had different incarnations. They've, but they always stick with the same basic formula, and that's rooted in American music. It's rooted in blues, and when their lyrics a lot of times mention American cities. And I think that that's a big factor with winning in America. Is to talk about Jackson, Mississippi, and Memphis, and wherever else. They're for a British band. They're very much an American band.
What was the first album you bought by these songs besides Hot Rock? With original content, not a greatest hits.
You know what it was? And this is just the way it worked out. And a lot of people, this is just right after their cutoff. It was Undercover.
Oh my God, really?
The vinyl Undercover. And you know something? I think that's an underrated album. It wasn't Tattoo You. It wasn't Some Girls.
I think that's an underrated Stones album.
I do too. A lot of people say it's their last great one, but I think that it's it's one of their best, in my opinion.
Well,
did you ever see Performance? The movie Performance?
Yeah, that was the Scorsese movie, right? Oh no! You're talking about way back when with Memo for
Turner.
Memo to Turner. Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't think I did see that.
The thing about Goat's Head Soup, Tattoo You, is that it is the songs that didn't make it onto Goat's Head Soup wound up going on Tattoo You, and I think one of the most underrated songs off that album was Waiting on a Friend.
Oh man, that was kind of a doorway into a deeper kind of, because I didn't get that song as a kid. I didn't get that song until I was 35 going, or maybe even 40, did it really go, wow, okay, now I see what they're talking about with Waiting on a Friend. You're tired of having romantic relationships that bust up. It's nice if you can just keep having sex with a woman and have it be trouble-free on a friendship level.
When does that happen?
Well, if you're Mick Jagger,
if you love a prostitute.
See, for me, I went into the Stones very late because, again, I was starting. Well, yeah, that too, but they didn't put out a lot of music at the time, so I was really introduced to them during Steel Wheels. So
great album, very underrated album.
And for me, I mean, Mixed Emotions was the first real Stones song that I had gotten into, and I really loved it from the video on MTV. So I went backwards. I went completely backwards, and my first one that I bought was Tattoo You.
Okay. I think Steel Wheels, I mean, they had a couple of good songs. I liked Rockin' a Hard Place.
Great song.
And that always was great live. And I think me and you talked about this back that night, Pat, but I worked on that tour. And it's a bunch of dates on Steel Wheels. And from that, I wound up doing 4 different tours with the Stones.
And that was, if I'm not mistaken, Jeffrey, that was the one where they started to get the whole, sticks and canes kind of thing. Like, oh, they're so old. And at the time when you were working that, did you imagine that, in 2020, they'd still be touring? I mean, it's amazing.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. Because you looked at them and they were maybe I guess in their late 50s, because Steel Wheels was about 89, 90 when they toured. Mm-hmm. And the opening band, I mean, the Stones also known for always having great supporting acts, and was a new up and coming act was Living Colour, who was great every single night.
How could that be though? If they were in their late 50s and 89, wouldn't that make them in their 90s now?
Could they be
in their 80s? Probably in their late 50s. Early 50s.
I think they're around 70
years old now. So I mean, listen, I'm not good at math, so
or comedy.
Me neither. It's always good to have supporters on hand, isn't it?
Yeah, this is my code.
Mick is 76, by the way.
He's 70. Okay, so what are they? Were they in their late 40s at the time?
Oh, mid 50s they were.
Still, man. I mean, when you looked at them, and I was right there with them, they looked like old guys. They looked old. Jagger looked great on stage. But when you got these guys off the stage, because one of the things I used to have to do was before he would take the stage, sometimes he would run, he would exercise, and I would go running with him. Okay, he looked old. And now, like Pat said, it's 2020, And if there wasn't a pandemic, they would still been touring this year.
Sure.
They love the
He's
tour.
going to be
They-
76 in July 26. Nick Jagger, 76.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I saw them only once, and it was in Houston, and it was just not a particularly good type of venue, like a big stadium kind of thing or something like that, big. And the stage, the way it comes out into the middle of the room, I don't know if they were doing that during Steel Wheels, but during, I think it's Honky Tonk Women or something like that. It'll come
What
out.
year was it?
This was like 2005.
2009. I was there. I think the last one I did was Bridges to Babylon. Either that or Voodoo Lounge, but I think it was Bridges to Babylon.
This is gonna shock you, but there are a lot of eras to the Stones, like we were saying, and now I haven't even explored. I've never even heard Dirty Work from beginning to end, and that came out right after Undercover. Because I figure I'll have these to get into later. In 20 years, they're gonna sound better than they do now.
Dirty Work had they had a one hit to the body, right?
Yeah, and Harlem Shuffle, I enjoy that song.
Yeah, that wasn't too bad. It had a pretty decent video. What are some of
the
the
cover
songs?
was a big turnoff.
Which one?
The cover was a big turnoff.
Yeah. What were some songs that really stick out to you? I know, again, like because Vanessa was talking about the Beatles, and you can't pin down, your favorite all time. So, what songs like really stick with you with the Beatles that you really kind of love?
You're asking about the Beatles?
No, I'm talking about
the Stones. We talked about the Beatles. You're the Stones guy.
I'll say the
Thank you,
Stones.
Vanessa.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, right now the one I can't stop listening to is Star Star. From Goat's Head.
Sure. Yeah.
What a fucking! It's just a great song.
Do you know about "Give Me Shelter"? What happened to Mary, the background woman?
Yeah. I
Okay,
sure do.
that's a great
that's quite
story.
a
I would
story.
tell
It's my favorite
Jeff that
song, but-
story. Do you know that story?
Tell
Jeff?
the story, Vanessa.
Yeah. Tell the
No,
story?
Yeah,
No,
tell
I
us.
was going to have Pat tell the story because he's the
Right.
Stones guy.
Pat, you know
Pat,
the story.
tell the
Tell us.
story. I've been talking a lot. Pat, tell the story.
All right. Well, this woman named Mary Wells was called in to do the background vocals on that, which is really not even the backing vocal. It's really kind of the lead vocal. It's what makes that song what it is.
Sure
Give Me
is.
Shelter, And she sang with such kind of commitment. You can hear her voice crack at one point. Anyway, she had a miscarriage because she was pregnant a couple of days later. She had never even heard of the Rolling Stones. I mean, it's unbelievable to think that, but that's the way.
And
it
they
was
woke
at the
her up
time.
in the middle of the night, told her to
Yeah.
get dressed, come to the studio. She lost her baby.
They cracked whips on her. It was ridiculous. I'm sure she was compensated, but how do you get compensated for losing a baby? I don't really know.
Right,
My mom had
right.
4 miscarriages, so
I
And
may
3
be
of them
wrong on
lived.
this, but it's a very like soulful sound when she's singing. But isn't
Yes.
she white?
No, she's
No.
black.
no, I
a
believe
black
she's
woman.
black.
Yeah, she-
Yeah, but anyway,
Yeah, she's
it's not
black.
really. Give Me Shelter is a great song. Anybody would put that on their list. When I go through the Stone songs that I love, the era I love the Mick Taylor era. I love
Right.
Tumbling Dice. To me, didn't mean a damn thing when I was 18 years old, and now I think it's like, oh yeah, I totally get that. Tumbling Dice. Exile on Main Street took me forever to get into. It's a big double album, and at first it doesn't sound remarkable to your ear, but like over time it worms its way in, like one song at a time. Turd on the Run was the first song that I actually liked on that album, and I'd listened to it 25 times before I found something that really resonated. Turd on the Run is not really ever listed as one of their great songs,
Exactly.
but it's a good.
What do you think?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What do you think about a song like Heartbreaker?
I don't love Heartbreaker. I don't know.
Really?
It seems a little political.
Oh, I love it. I think it's such. I love that whole whole 70s era Stones. To me that
Some
really
girls.
does it for me.
See, my favorite song by the Stones is a popular one, but not their most popular, is Get Off My Cloud.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh man, yeah, it's got such great energy, great drums. It's got that great call and response thing, and the energy. Jumpin' Jack Flash was probably my favorite one when I was in my teens, and that song, it's magic. Brown Sugar to me is like that one never ever stops being fun. It's just like
I don't think you could record Brown Sugar today.
No. You can't.
Not in exactly the same way, you know. And they
No.
were always outrageous, you know. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. It just means that, you know, times have
It was a product of the time.
changed.
Now, when
I
you,
Yeah.
I had
Well, no,
never
you know
heard-
what? Even at the time, if people would have paid attention to what he was actually, that's a great thing about the Stones. Mick sings, right? You hear his voice, but unless you know what he's saying, you don't get exactly how he's singing it. You know, it's hard to explain.
he
The voice,
plucks his words is what he does.
yeah, they're buried in the mix a little bit, you know, and he's hitting notes. It sounds like it's this effortless thing, you know, and that he's just, but like, if you, like, I play piano sometimes and I could, like, if you play the melody line, it's exact, I mean, he's a great singer. I mean, he really is. He hits everything perfect, but it's buried in the mix a lot of times, you know, and so that's very interesting the way they do that. It's almost like just another instrument, and I think it's cool to not feature the singer right up front. It gives you something to discover later on.
I had never heard Jumping Jack Flash in my life until I had heard a bootleg version of Guns N' Roses doing it.
Really?
Because I was on, I mean, that was my band growing
That was
up.
your first introduction to Jumping Jack Flash?
Yeah, because what I would do is there used to be this place in Jersey where they would sell bootleg cassettes, like the old concerts and stuff like that. So I would take the bus up to this place, and I found one Guns N' Roses tape that I didn't have. It was all demos and outtakes. And now what they did was they actually re-released it when they did I think it was the 25th or the 30th anniversary of Appetite for Destruction. They released all those remastered demos, and they do a ridiculous version of Jumpin' Jack Flash. And they also do Heartbreak Hotel by Elvis, completely
Wow.
sped up and just pure raw punk and rock. And I had known the name of the song. Like, I didn't know, I knew it was the Rolling Stones. I knew that I had never heard it until I heard Guns N' Roses doing it first. So then I
Yeah.
went backwards and I was like, this is a killer song. This is a really, really killer song. So I go backwards with the Rolling Stones.
And that's, I kind of admire, I kind of like envy you in a way. You've got so much to discover. I think you've got a lot more to discover going back than you do going forward. You know,
I think
and
so.
that,
A lot
the
of bands
lyrics-
great like that. I mean, I'm not picking on Jeff because I do that every episode, but because I am a little younger, I have to go backwards for a lot of these bands. So like for me, I always talk about Guns N' Roses because that's the band that I saw from the beginning. I saw them from 12, 13 years old going forward, but like the bands I went backwards were, you know, the Doors, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, Mountain, like all these great rock.
Mountain.
Yeah.
Mountain.
Let's see
I
what.
don't hear Mountain thrown into that list very often with this.
Well, see, me personally, I think the Mississippi Queen is one of the greatest rock songs ever recorded.
Probably is.
And that was done by Mountain? I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
That's the best.
Mississippi Queen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sean, if you're going to go backwards, you start with Beggar's Banquet.
Beggar's Banquet. I have it.
That's a good record to start with.
Well, you can't go. Oh, but to go backwards from there, you'd only be able to go back to like Under My Thumb and stuff. I mean, like Beggar's Banquet.
It had Street Fighting Man on it, which is, you know.
That song is another one, man, that I just recently.
Mother's
kinda
Little
rediscovered.
Helper. What album is that? Mother's Little Helper.
Good question.
song.
It would be one of the real early ones, you know, like Between the Buttons or something like that. I mean, there's a bunch of the.
Yeah, that's a good song. It wasn't like one of my favorite. You know what it is? It's on Mother's Little Helper, is her early song. So that's off of Aftermath.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't know.
And you know that also has Under My Thumb on it as well.
I know, Under My Thumb. It's
Yeah.
like so. Boy, have we come a long way.
My first Rolling Stone
I don't know.
tape that I had when I did the Columbia House 10 for a Penny.
Sure.
I remember
Those
that. Yep.
beautiful days.
Yes.
Was Black and Blue.
Black and Blue is a
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah,
Black and Blue
What-
is interesting,
Full
right? It's got
Surprise is
maybe,
a great song, but
It's a really moody record because it has songs like Memory Motel on it, which underrated song, Love, and Fool to Cry, which are both
That's
That's
really,
a
Negrita.
beautiful song. Fool
Right?
to Cry.
yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
I got to be in a certain mood to enjoy that one. But it has that.
What,
that
like
album has a lot of
suicidal and
the
depressed?
whatever. But it's got a lot of Caribbean kind of like reggae type shit on it, you know, and you could tell they were having like a bit of a identity, not an identity crisis, you know, but they were in transition, you know. I think it was right before they got Ron Wood or right after they got Ron Wood. And You know, the Mick Taylor stuff. You're talking about Beggar's Banquet. You're talking about Exile on Main Street, Sticky Fingers, and then whatever the album is.
Actually,
What's that?
Sticky Fingers to a lot of critics considered their best album.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
If you go online and look at some like these best album surveys,
it was one of the best album covers too. It was considered one of the best album covers.
For me, it's not even in my top 3 favorite Stones albums. But you know, this is all completely subjective stuff.
It is in a way. I mean, like, I don't know about top 3. I mean, I wouldn't nail anybody on their top 3, but you know, it's got to at least be in the top 5 or 10.
The number 1 album.
Emotional Rescue is a good song. I like it.
Is it?
I don't mind the disco stuff. I don't mind Miss You on Some Girls. I like that stuff. So, Some Girls was so crucial to them because it really gave them some kind of viability with the punk rock stuff that was going on, even though it wasn't a punk album by any means. But
Shattered is probably the most punk song on the album, right?
Yeah. Still, they're you know what their fastest song that they ever recorded was, according to Keith, was "Rip This Joint," the second song on side 1 of Exile on Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
And they mention a lot of American cities in that song.
I wish I had a great story about seeing the Rolling Stones, because I did go to a concert. The Foo Fighters were opening up for them, and it was right when the second album, Color and the Shape, came out. So it was like 97. So I guess that was the Bridges to Babylon tour.
Did you saw them at Giant Stadium?
Giant Stadium. Yeah.
I was on stage during that.
And I had great seats, probably 15th, 16th row, and loved the Foo Fighters.
I was on one side, my brother was on the other side because there was a big stairway going up.
Right.
My God.
So then the Foo Fighters go on, and they're great. And my friends are like, hey, I got some really potent weed. Do you want to try some? And I'm like, well, I don't smoke pot, so sure, why not? So I smoke pot in between, and then I literally have my head on my arm like this. The lights go out, and the crowd starts cheering. Keith starts with "Start Me Up." So I hear the first 3 chords. I lift my head up. I went, nope. And then put my head right back down. I could not keep my head up for the whole show. I heard everything. I could not physically keep my head up. And I remember playing that old video game Arkanoid. Do you remember that, with a little ball and it would break the bricks? I was playing it in my mind while the Stones are playing in my ear and my head is on my arm.
Well, you had your own special concert.
I had a great time, Pat. I had a great time at that show.
I think you do have a pretty good seeing the Rolling Stone story, actually.
I guess. I wish I saw them, though. I was looking forward to seeing them on this tour. I really was. I was going to spend the money. I was going to do it, but somebody had to eat a bat.
If you never saw the Stones and there's still an opportunity to see them, it's one of those bucket list things. You have to do it.
Yeah, you have to.
Well, you expect them to degenerate over time. They're playing better.
Or Paul McCartney.
They're playing better now.
Nothing like it.
They really are. The new song is really good.
Vanessa, I told you my Paul McCartney story, right?
Yeah, the new Stones song they just put out last week, I think, is a really solid song. Have you heard it, Pat?
What's it called? I didn't even know it.
Not even aware of it.
Yeah, they just put out a song. Let me get the name of it. "Living in a Ghost Town." So they recorded it. They wrote it a few months ago, and they were recording it. And because of what's been going on in the world, obviously they changed some of the lyrics around. But the video is great. It's literally just like they're walking down the streets of Paris and London, and there's nobody there. So they wrote this song before the pandemic even happened.
Right.
Wow.
I did see that.
How prolific.
And it just came out last week.
Hey, did you see on one of those pandemic shows the Stones were on, and they did "You Can't Always Get What You Want"?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the show. That's what I was talking to you about, Pat, when you came on. Did you watch it?
Yeah. No, I saw it. Yeah, I watched it once.
It was great.
It did prove to me that Keith Richards did die 7 years ago, and no one's just told him yet.
I thought Keith was
hot. I think he was great.
I'll tell you that. I thought Mick was fine. The young guy that was doing the guitar was okay. Ron Wood. Wait, who's
young guy Keith Richards?
Yeah, the young guy with playing the guitar was great. The drummer, what was it? Charlie? Was it Charlie?
It was.
Charlie Watts was great. But Keith looked like he was on heroin. Am I right? Am I missing something?
He looked great. I loved them. I thought they were the best thing on all the shows.
Did you watch it? He was barely he wasn't even playing.
He was on that song,
playing over a track.
Yeah, he doesn't play too much in that song. Actually, Mick plays more rhythm in that song than he.
Yes.
It's funny how and I guess it really does hold true that Ron Wood, all these years later, I mean, he's been with him since the 70s. He's still the new guy.
Right, exactly.
That's a
And
band
I
with some
think
history, right?
I honestly think that Ron Wood is one of the most underrated and underappreciated musicians of all time.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
He's part of that guitar thing that they do. It's not about lead and rhythm, it's about this mashup, and that's it really, we have to all be grateful that, and that they kicked Brian Jones out when they did, because like I don't know anything about his drug habits or how difficult he was to work with, but he, to me, just doesn't quite fit the profile.
Yeah, I agree.
Good.
100%.
The only other guitar duo in a band that I could think that kind of would rival Wood and Richards would maybe be Don Felder and Joe Walsh.
Yeah, I could see that, I guess. I mean, like,
How about Al
I'm
Di
not a-
Meola?
But who would be his second?
Jaco Pastorius?
He's bass though, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think
There's
of
a bunch
bands that
of
have
options.
two great lead guitarists.
I mean, look
Yeah,
at
I can
Iron
see
Maiden.
that.
Iron Maiden's the same way. You can't have
Maiden is insane. That's my favorite
you
band.
can't have it. You can't have one without the other on that band.
Pink Floyd? I don't know who. I
It's
forgot
only
who the lead
Gilmore.
guitar.
It's
Yeah,
only
yeah,
Gilmore.
Gilmore. Yes.
Gilmore is a one-man wrecking show, man. He's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, he's a very lyrical guitar player, like very nice.
Again, the lead that he
Steely
does.
Dan, I thought. Do you like Steely Dan? They're one of my favorite bands around.
Musically, they're amazing.
I like
Yeah.
Steely Dan. They changed lineups like
All the
nearly
time.
every album. There's just
On an
Donald
album
Fagen
like,
and the other guy.
yeah, like on an album like Asia, they had a different lineup for every song.
Crazy. I mean,
Yeah,
but
and like you
and
said-
yet the sound is the same. It's amazing.
Well, they envisioned different musicians playing different songs and different moods, but the constants, like you said, were Donald Fagen and who was the other guy? Fagen and
Neil Sedaka.
it wasn't Neil Sedaka.
No, it's not Neil Sedaka. Stop.
Oh, he died. This other guy.
He's great. Who's awesome.
Everybody watching this
Oh,
remembers
okay.
it, and we don't. We look like a bunch of idiot boomers.
Oh, I know who it is. I'm just watching Jeff die a slow death.
Who is it, Sean? Come on, stop.
I have no idea. I don't listen to that shit.
You're-
I'll tell you. I can't stand it.
Pat, what have
Yeah.
you been doing now? With comedy being gone for as many weeks as it has, what have you been doing with your time?
Stuff like this, like I've been recording a lot of shows, like
Walter
interviews
Becker.
with people.
Walter
No.
Becker.
No,
Walter Becker.
No, Donald Fagen's Walter Becker.
the other guy is Walter Becker. I thought the
Yes.
other guy was famous as well.
He was well known. So go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Whatever. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm just recording interviews on Zoom, and I don't know. Like it's something to do. This has actually been that push I needed to get into some kind of video stuff. I'm doing, obviously, I'm still doing stuff at the studio at Compound. So Crime Report is intact, and the other shows I do. I mean, I've been kind of doing more work than ever in terms of this stuff. The only thing that's missing is stand-up. I can't tell you when I've ever gone 2 months. I haven't gone 2 months without doing stand-up in well over 23, 24 years, and I bet a couple of you guys could say the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Vanessa was just saying before you came on. Yeah, I think it's got to be the longest stretch that any of us have gone without being on stage.
I went a month when I first moved to New York, and that's the longest I ever went.
What do you think?
I've never gone more than 2 weeks in 28 years, and now I've gone 2 months. 28 years, never went more than 2 weeks. Even on my honeymoon, I performed in Paris and Amsterdam.
So what?
Yeah.
So when we come back, what is it going to be? You think
What,
that-
my act? I'm gonna go right back to the crowd work like before.
It's going to be. Maybe you bring that piano out and start playing some music.
Well, look, I mean, that would be fun, but some of the clubs that didn't really change their, like Dangerfields, how much business did they really lose?
That's what Vanessa was
By
saying.
shutting down.
Are
It's
they
a
going to pay
shame.
us less than 25 when it opens up again with the social distancing? Are we going to get $15 a night instead of 25?
Oh, right, because they're gonna have to cut the number of people in the club. I mean,
Yep.
comedy clubs will be one of the last things to come back.
Right, I
unfortunately.
know.
I actually heard an interview this morning with Caroline from Caroline's on Fox 5, and she says she doesn't think it's going to be back until fall.
Probably at the
Caroline.
earliest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
They have
she's
to reconfigure the whole you know,
Unless we get a vaccine. If we get a vaccine, all bets are off. We're okay.
yeah, we're not getting that until the winter.
You know, what would be fun to do would be just like find one of these bars that likes to do, you know, book shows and just start booking fucking comedy shows, and you could get anybody you want.
I think it's gonna. I think you're
What they need to do is have have something where you just post something that it's at your expense, mask or no mask. If you come in here, you can't sue the bar, you can't sue anybody. If you want to have a good time, come to the show. They've got to change some of the laws so that people can go to a show and not worry, and the bartender or the club owner doesn't have to worry about getting sued. That's what I say.
the Zoom comedy is very strange.
It's awful.
It's very. I've done 2 of them now. It's. I've done one with no microphones being on, so you can't hear the people laughing, which is kind of weird. And I've done one where you can't see anybody, but you can hear them. It feels good. You having a stroke, Vanessa?
I mean, those 2 shows, you
No,
got one
I'm getting low
3/4 act show.
battery and I'm having a stroke.
God, I've
Stop.
never done.
Thank you
tried
for
one of
making me
these Zoom
feel.
shows? I'm sorry.
Did I what?
I was just has Pat, Pat, are you okay?
Yeah,
have you
fine.
tried one of these Zoom shows?
No, I haven't. I mean, I've done stuff that's more conversational and obviously, you know, the crime report stuff is intended to be funny. Any interview I'm doing, I'm trying to be funny, you know, but like it's not the same as doing stand up.
Of course.
I shot 10 minutes of myself doing stand up in my apartment the other day, and I'm, you know, I guess the impulse to perform is really strong. You know, we'll see how that turns out. I'll edit it together, and
I've been doing live feeds every night on Facebook at 7:00, and you know, there's some nights where I feel myself just I'm trying to be funny, and I look down and it's 7:45, and then there's times where I feel like this is the longest fucking 37 years of my life, and I'm 6 minutes into it, and I want to abort, and I can't. So it's it's strange.
Why can't you abort? I don't understand. Why can't you abort?
I made a promise that I'm trying to give back. I'm just trying to keep people's minds off of what's going on. So like, I'm not doing any politics. I'm not doing any religion, any of that shit. So I'm coming up with like weird topics to talk about, like greatest 80s hair metal bands. So people will be chiming in, but like, it was starting to get very tiring, you know, because people would be like, here's my suggestion. Let's talk about this. This is fun. And I'll be like, oh, no problem. And then we're done at like 7:07. So then it's like me trying to do fucking crowd work, but there's nobody there for me to do crowd work to. So,
you know, yeah, comedy is not a team sport. Stand-up is not. Sometimes comedy can be. Stand-up is not a team sport. So that makes it awkward when you have to rely on everybody else to kind of come together and do what they're supposed to do and shit. It's like, you might as well be in a band.
Yeah, and I've done both. Believe me, it ain't fucking pretty. It ain't pretty.
What do you play?
I sing and play guitar.
Oh, do you write songs?
I have probably a book of 600 songs written. Yeah.
Why don't you sing us a song?
I'd rather blow my fucking brains out than sing right now.
Okay, do that then.
Here's my R. Bud Dwyer moment of the fucking career.
Sean, if you do it, we'll go viral.
People have asked me to start playing. I think what we're gonna do is I'm going to get my actual guitar player, and I'm gonna write some weird funky shit, and I'll have him play it, and then I'll sing along with him.
Okay.
So let us know when that happens.
Yeah, this was fun though.
All right, guys.
We're just getting started. We're scratching the surface on the Rolling Stones. You got to come back with a more Rolling Stones type of episode, I think.
We can do that.
If you want to talk
We
more,
can do part 2.
We can talk more. We can definitely talk more. I just figured if I was getting tired.
yeah, I can keep going.
Well, I'll tell you that. People are always like talking about Beatles or Stones being better, and I do think that it's a personality type, you know, just like a lot of things are, right? And I think that's really more about what it is than who's better. Vic Henley, you know, he recently passed away. Yeah. I remember his thing was they're both great. They both have great albums. They both got great songs. You know, there's no reason to compare them. He would not get into that debate, but I think that for me the Stones are better because you can actually fuck to the Rolling Stones. And I don't think that you can fuck to the Beatles.
The Beatles are superior.
For fucking?
Why not?
Which Beatles album would you fuck to? Anything with
I'll
Penny
tell you.
Lane on it. You wouldn't-
How about-
Elaine,
How
no,
about Abbey Road?
no, I'll tell you one. Golden Slumbers.
That's Abbey Road.
Yeah.
yeah, but you're talking songs. I mean, like, what about well,
That's
the
the
White
song,
Album?
Golden
Maybe,
Slumbers.
I guess.
Golden
The
Slumbers.
White Album.
Well, yeah, but hopefully you're getting fucked
Hey,
longer
you
than
fucking
4.5
do
Doing
minutes.
in the road is about having sex right in the road.
Yeah,
It's
nothing,
like- it's
nothing gets
in
me
the-
harder than
It-
fucking Rocky
that's a
Raccoon.
little on the nose, though, don't you think?
It is.
If you
but I'm
if you're
telling you,
actually
Golden
humping, to why don't we
Slumbers-
do it in the road?
No, Golden Slumbers is very soft and Come Together.
It-
And
Come together, yeah.
Well, that never
Come
happened.
Together. And
I
Mother
could
Nature's
jerk
Son,
it to
if
come
you're
together.
feeling a little on the gentle side, don't get me started. I could go through the whole thing of all the songs. you
Sorry
have
to
sex
get
to.
so nasty. I can see how uncomfortable Jeffrey is with this conversation. And
No, I'm just trying to think of some good Stones fucking songs. You can
No.
put it on Lil TNA and get a little rhythm going.
The problem,
I used to.
the problem
I
is
would
that
put-
Jeff's a virgin. That's why he's getting a little upset. So
Oh, come now. That's nothing to be upset about. The Exile on Main Street, I put that record on, and time after time, it was just, it worked every time. It just worked because it's there and it's
You know
not
what's
there.
great about the Beatles is it's so prolific and so wonderful that you don't even need to have sex to listen to them. The Stones, you think about having sex. Beatles, you don't even need to.
I
Okay.
think when you look at the lexicon, the Mount Rushmore of music, you got the Beatles, you got the Stones, and then you have a conversation about everybody else.
I guess that is true. That is true. You know, but in appreciation of the Stones, man. I mean, like,
Well, you
I
have
don't know what-
Helene Witt on the show all the time. She's a huge Beatles girl.
Helene Witt.
Yeah,
You have her on the show.
On this show?
you have her on your show, Pat.
Oh yeah, I've had her on my show a number of times. Yeah, I didn't know you were. Yeah, I'm not against Beatles people. Don't get me wrong. My wife's a Beatles person. I am against her, but it's not because of the Beatles thing.
Is there a real competition between the Beatles and the Stones? Oh, is that really a thing?
No, there really isn't. There really isn't. But I mean, I do remember that being a debate all the time. Maybe it's just like a dumb boomer trope, you know? I don't know.
no, I
But,
remember. I even remember hearing about that too. It's like, which camp are you in? And like, it was the same thing with the heavy metal. It's like, do you like Metallica or do you like Megadeth? You can't like them both. Which one do you like? It's bullshit. Just listen to music. You know what I mean? Music is the art. It's the universal language. Like whatever and listen to whatever the fuck you want. That's the beautiful thing about it. I can put on Helter Skelter and then go right into Painted Black and not see which one is better than the other.
Well, you
Right.
know, the Stones do have such a great kind of darkness that isn't really like all that dark. You know, I mean, I think that they teach you how to be an adult male.
That's a great analogy.
Who was cool?
I think they really do. I think that there's a lot of stuff that's contained in those songs that you really it's conveyed in a shorthand, you know, and you have to decipher it and figure it out, and that takes time. But great songs are not songs that you liked 20 years ago and don't really think about anymore. There's songs that stay with you for your whole life, you know, like that's Cole
But the
Porter
Beatles
and all that stuff.
that
Frank
have
Sinatra.
humanity.
It's not about the Beatles. Yeah, Beatles are great. They have all that, you know, but for me, those songs, it's the compositions and the actual recordings of them too, you know,
Sure.
of a Sweet Virginia or I don't know, like so many songs that you could name that go down that road, and not all of them are hits, you know, and people don't like to get into the Stones sometimes because their catalog is so immense.
That's true.
But you can get by on 10 Stones albums, 10, 12, you know, Stones albums, and I could probably survive on that.
I mean, you could take their 3-disc greatest hits set, and you're never gonna find a 3-disc set better than the Rolling Stones greatest hits set.
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean they have so many songs like you can't fit them onto. It's an incredible streak. I think they've had a streak of good luck.
I think the only other greatest.
Monkey, I'd have to say I love. What about that song Monkey?
Oh, Monkey Man.
Monkey Man,
Monkey Man, yeah.
one of the best ones around.
Phenomenal song.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's you know it's another one of their songs. It's you can count the bad ones. There's I mean like let's talk about bad Rolling Stone songs. What to you is a bad Rolling Stone song, Jeffrey? I mean like I know you got a few.
Yeah, Emotional Rescue.
You think that's a bad
Start Me
song?
Up, I Can't Stand.
My God.
Rescue.
You don't like Start Me Up?
Oh,
No.
Start Me Up. It's a great.
No,
I think
nothing. Oh,
Start Me Up
nothing.
is their last big classic song. Like, ranked up there with some of the all-time greats.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the big hit of that era. They open with it sometimes.
It does nothing for me.
It really.
It's
Oh, wow.
well, you know why? It's because it's for guys. That's one song. It does have a specific guy kind of because he's talking about a car, but he's really talking about his junk.
I'm not a big Under My Thumb fan.
I love Under My Thumb.
No, I'm just thinking another great album that you would like, Sean. Check out Let It Bleed.
Let It Bleed. Wow. How did we not mention that one yet?
I don't know, but when you're talking about Gimme Shelter, Monkey Man, Can't Always Get What You Want,
Midnight Rambler.
Midnight Rambler.
Oh, great.
Oh,
Great.
And
About a killer. You don't even notice.
Sympathy for the Devil. Great song.
Not a fan of that one either.
You don't like
really?
Not a huge. I like it, but it's not. I think there's so many better songs than Sympathy for the Devil. So much so that when Guns N' Roses covered it, I didn't like it.
Wow.
Weird. Yes, it just didn't hit me. It just didn't hit me for some reason.
That's a disappointment. I'm disappointed in you, Sean.
That's not the first time I've heard that today, Vanessa. So.
Yeah. My dad hated that song, "Sympathy for the Devil." He was sure. I remember playing it. He'd be like, "This is like there's a scratch or something on the record, with the repetition." Just convinced of that, So obviously, I played it a lot more.
I'm not a big Angie fan either.
No, I hate that song.
I like
Angie's
Angie.
a gorgeous song, I think. Gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, if you ever break up with somebody and it's in
Yes.
that, oh man, I have several, but I guess my first two marriages that kind of remind me of that too.
Oh, and I don't like.
Were they named Angie? Were the girls Angie, or did they have an initial A?
No, it was just that we had no money and no love in our souls.
That's a pretty good reason for a divorce.
But you can't say we never tried.
Right. Angie might not be the best song to have sex to, now that I think about it.
You're beautiful, Angie. You're beautiful.
You're beautiful. But see you later.
You could have sex to you can't always get what you want if you finish in about a minute and a half. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That way.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, not
but
everything
have the
is
dreams
equal.
held so close, all seems to go up in smoke.
Yeah, let me whisper in your ear, Angie. I bet that's Jeffrey's least favorite part of that song.
Oh
Angie.
God, Pat, you nailed it. That nothing makes me creep out and douche chill more when he starts whispering, go, Angie.
You know that video for
it reminds me of Billy Crystal trying to be like the jazz guy.
Right. You ever see the video for It's Only Rock and Roll, and they're wearing those sailor suits and the bubbles?
Oh yeah, and they're in the bubbles. Oh, that's awful.
I think that's the real reason Mick Taylor quit the band.
Yeah, and I'm surprised he didn't hang himself for that one. Oh, that is awful. That's a kind of a scene from Philadelphia.
With the eyeliner and everything.
Yeah.
Great song though.
What about Mick Jagger and David Bowie actually having sex?
Oh, that's some brutal stuff there. I like this. When I think
that's a myth.
I just love
myth? Did you ever see that video?
Give Me Shelter.
What do you say about Give Me Shelter?
I said, when I think of the Stones, I don't think about those things, Pat. I love to think about the opening chords of Give Me Shelter and how that just sets a mood, man. There's no better opening than that song.
You ever heard the demo version of that where there's it doesn't have that background vocal at all. It doesn't have that that really nice subtle guitar sound or anything.
Down every wormhole of those songs. Yeah. I've heard, rough. Speaking of great demos, have you ever heard the demo for Strawberry Fields?
No.
That's great. It's just Lennon.
Really?
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. Playing it on, I guess, like a, kind of like an electric piano.
That's nice. It shows that, a great song is it doesn't really need all that production necessarily. It can have a lot of different lives.
Exactly. And when we were just talking about You Can't Always Get What You Want, I thought it sounded great on that special, and that's without the huge choir in the background, which really brings that song together.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the choir, for God's sake, at the end is great. I mean, I could do now that I'm older, I can do completely without that whole, bass choir and all that stuff.
Yes.
I don't need that anymore. I don't need there's a certain type of a woodwind or a horn or something right at the beginning. It's like you're on the prairie or something. It's not my favorite.
Do it again, Pat. How did it go?
You know the sound I'm talking about. It's like somebody's blowing into a horn, like.
I know the sound. Yes, I wanted the people who are listening. I wanted them to hear the sound.
I chased Vanessa off. That's all it took was one more horn blow.
The battery died.
So just so you know, I don't know if you guys have any biggest fears when it comes to comedy. I don't have any, with the exception of having to piss my pants while I'm on stage. So what I do is before I go on my set, whether I'm hosting, middling, headlining, whatever, I make sure I pee like 3 times within the 20 minutes before I have to go back on stage. And I just realized I was at about 1 hour and 20 minutes, and I'm like, I'm gonna piss my pants at my fucking desk right now.
You could have taken it out and done it in your waist can.
I gotta go, guys. I got a 5:30 phone call for work.
Go for it.
Vanessa, it was great seeing you.
Yeah, we're wrapping this up anyway, so thank you so much for your time, Vanessa. We really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. It was my pleasure. I had such a good time. It was so good for my head. Believe me, it was good for my head.
I'll reach out tomorrow.
Okay.
And Vanessa, can I just tell you, you look fly in yellow.
Are you? It was so good talking to everybody, and I need my cat's got to get spayed. And just one last question: how's she doing, Sean? Jay?
Wonderful.
Okay. I got to take this. I've got 5 minutes to get back for work stuff.
Later.
Okay. Love you. Love you guys.
Bye bye.
See you.
All right, Pat. So I guess there's no place we're gonna see you. Tell us where could people find Crime Report?
But New York City Crime Report, you can go to crimereport.nyc, and if you that's my website, and it's got some other stuff on it. If you're just trying to get that podcast, go to wherever you get your podcast. It's iTunes and all that shit. The New York City Crime Report with Pat Dixon. It's really one of the first true crime podcasts. As far as I know, it's the only true crime, all comedy, all New York City podcast.
It's a great podcast. I remember I did it when you had it at the Creek in the Cave, and I did it over the compound.
Yeah, it was, and I think Creek in the Cave was kind of weird. You know what I mean? Like we were on 2 diverging paths the whole time. Me and my co-host there at the time, and I didn't even know it. So that was, you might have caught us at a weird juncture there, and I want to have you on. Hell, I want to have you on as soon as possible to talk about some more crime stuff, because it's a lot of fun. Crime's just a great topic. It's a water cooler topic. It's the kind of thing you talk about that it's easy to joke about. There's always something there. Like there was a story today. This guy, I think we did it on yesterday's show with I don't know if whatever. It doesn't matter who I had on. This guy, he was going through his mom's, cleaning up her apartment after she died, right? And he's cleaning out the freezer, and he found a dead body. And they determined this body had been dead for like 10 years. They couldn't even tell what sex it was. She'd had a body in there for 10 years. And you're like, what is somebody's mom?
Where was the freezer?
You know what? There's always a bunch of questions like that. And that's exactly the kind of stuff we talk about on the show. Where was the freezer? Must have been in a basement, right? Must have been one of those big meat freezers.
In the freezer for 10 years.
Yeah, it wasn't up there with the Eggos and stuff like that. It wasn't.
Well, you don't know that. Or what about if they went to Costco and you get the overspilled stuff, you put it in the freezer downstairs?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the more stuff gets, it just goes to show old people never throw anything out food wise.
Oh yeah.
They
Talk about hoarding.
Right?
And on that note,
yes.
You got to have me back on to talk Rolling Stones again sometime. I enjoy it too much.
Yes, I would love to do that.
One of my favorite people to talk to. You're so knowledgeable about so many different things, man. It's always love talking to you.
Well, that's a huge compliment coming from you, Jeffrey. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And good hanging with you. You guys have a great show here. I've been catching some episodes of it, and like it's once you get on an episode, you can't stop.
I appreciate that. It's fun. This is we want to do something different, just like you're doing something different with I'm trying to make humor out of crime. we're trying to just do. We don't want to do the typical two comedian podcast where we're just bashing each other for an hour and a half. It's just not
Just
fun.
bash me.
I do bash you a lot, but it's out of love. You understand? It's like when you have someone who's so much older than me and who has lived so much longer of a life. You know what I mean? Like I have to make fun of it all the time. So, but
Hey, look, that's kind of your only move, isn't it? At this point you are.
That's all he has, Pat.
oh, I got a lot more, Jeff. I got a lot more. Believe me. Your height, your face, your act. I got a lot of it. Believe me. But
what do you guys have in common music-wise, though? I mean, a lot, right? I mean, obviously the stuff everybody likes, Led Zeppelin, all that kind of stuff.
We're actually very different if you think about it. But the thing is,
I listen. You both love Sabbath. You both, you guys were on a lot when you were naming the top. I forget what albums it was. It might have been metal albums or something. You guys just matched and matched and matched.
That's the beautiful thing. We're very different, but we're also very alike. So some of the stuff that Jeff is stronger with, which is like I'd say more of like the 70s and 80s harder rock, I pick up with the
Civil War music,
90s rock. And a lot more current stuff too.
I had a whole debate with Eastside Dave, who is this guy. I don't know if you know him. He has a show at Compound, but a great guy. But he loves the '90s music, and I'm like, it's just not as good as you think it is.
I agree.
That's my take. I
agree.
When you compare,
it's all angst
music, not even close.
Yeah, I mean, when you take the angst out of it, first of all, I feel like the first half of it was all angst and anger and long hair and like her. And then when you get rid of that, you got Sugar Ray. So, and Nickelback and Hootie and the Blowfish. It's like, wow,
it was a very different. It was a very dynamic, not in a great way either, decade.
Like
it was all over. It was all over the place. Like when you had 1990, you're still listening to Poison and Warrant and Skid Row, and then you blinked your eye and everybody's wearing fucking flannel and smells like patchouli.
Wait, can you say the same thing about the 70s though? When you say, okay, the 70s had Zeppelin Cashmere, but at the same time, it also had Billy, Don't Be a Hero. It had like that shit too. It had the DeFranco family. It had, it had Leif Garrett, and at the same time, it also had, Paranoid. So I mean,
sure.
And it had the Ramones.
It had the Ramones. Well, the punk scene, was definitely came out of the 70s.
And that's the beautiful thing about music. That's the beautiful thing about it is that whatever you like is going to be available to you. And then there's other things that you can, maybe grow on you a little bit.
I like that you collected those rare cassettes. I mean, that's kind of a rare bit of open-mindedness in an outdated, medium, that you must have had at the time. Because who listens to cassettes were great. When you were trying to make something for somebody, cassettes were, you could put song fragments on, you could do anything. Sure. You had the most freedom. It was the most fun to make somebody a tape.
Oh yeah, and for me it was because it was like 4 cities away from me, so I had to actually plan my day, get on a bus, and be on a bus for 45 minutes with the anticipation of going to this place and not knowing what I was going to get, and having to make sure I had my yellow Sony Walkman with batteries fully charged, ready to listen to that tape on the way back.
You're making anticipation sound like a hardship.
But when you're 13 years old, what do you have? You know what I mean? Like, and you're a music nerd. I was a complete music nerd. So,
what I got into when I was 13? I got into the Doors, and that was it. Whatever band you latched onto around 13, that's your band till you're 15, 16.
You are 1,000% correct.
But why wasn't your band the Doors?
Why was it the Doors?
Yeah,
because I don't know. You know what it was? I saw a special on HBO. Never really knew anything about the Doors. And it was called Too Young to Die or something like that. Or, it was something about like rock stars dying young. And Jim Morrison was, and they talked about the Doors. And I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting, And then the more I bought and got into it, and I read that book about him, No One Here Gets Out Alive. And then, it just becomes kind of like an obsession. You buy every poster and all that shit. And nobody was listening to the fucking Doors in my town in like 1983. I felt like a complete asshole in a way, but like that was the gateway band for me to get into the Who, the Stones, and everything else that was good. So
I like that.
I'm glad I picked up on it.
I like that term, gateway band. It doesn't necessarily have to be your band. Sean, what was your gateway band? Like for me, I know it was probably Ted Nugent that got me into like metal.
I think I mentioned it on an earlier episode when my uncle handed me Blizzard of Oz from Ozzy, and I put it on because my mom was a huge country music fan, and he said to me, "Listen, I know you love your mother, but you got to listen to this and stop listening to the country shit." And I put it on and I played Suicide Solution, and I was like, at 6, going, "Okay, this is it. Like, this is it." But I think that the main breakout was Guns N' Roses for me.
Yeah,
and which is Pat just hit the nail on the head, because I try and be as open-minded as with music. I will listen to a lot of different shit. I mean, I just put weird stuff on my phone today, like I put on The Weeknd, Five Finger Death Punch. I mean,
I don't miss the days of looking at it like you do, man, because I just pre-hate anything like that now.
Well, that's the thing.
I
try not to, because you could find some really decent music out there. But for me, I know now I always go back to 88 to 90. And that's for me, it was between I was 12 and 14. So when you said that, it just completely solidified everything.
Yeah, for me, it's more about the band, because like when I was 13, it was 83, and Jim Morrison had been dead since 1971. So I mean, like, I always like, maybe, I don't know, something about that whole thing just appealed to me. You ever listen to the first Pink Floyd album?
Yeah.
Remember the first time, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn? Do you remember how disappointed you were?
Sure.
It's a very hard. The band is completely different, because back, that first album, that was all Syd Barrett influenced music, and
Exactly.
It's not until like Roger Waters really kind of takes over the band, and Gilmour comes into the band, where they go in a different direction, which is like, Dark Side of the Moon.
Wish You Were Here, all that stuff,
But
they did get a little heavy-handed on some of the concepts and stuff like that. But I just remember the first time hearing that record, and I was like determined to like it, because Syd Barrett flipped out on acid, so this has got to be cool. And it's, I've got a bike, you can ride it if you like, it's got a basket. Or you're like, man, I there's not enough acid.
No. I also never found Laurie Anderson, or who was she married to? Lou Reed. I never found them interesting or good.
Lou Reed, man, it's like I feel the same way about Lou Reed as I feel about the Who. Just like real hot and cold. Like some of the Who's shit is so terrible, and sometimes they'll have a terrible part within a great song. It's the most frustrating thing ever. They have this song that's cruising along, and then they'll just like stop and sing something sensitive, and then they go back to the song again.
Well, that's dopey Pete Townsend, but
exactly.
But then
being self-indulgent.
But then they'll also have something amazing like Love Rain on Me, which is one of the great songs of all time.
If I tell you my favorite Who song, you'll think I'm the biggest jerk in the world.
Hey, Squeeze Box, and I will rip out the rest of that hair.
Which one?
Squeeze Box.
No, it's not Squeeze Box. No, I'm not going to pick a banjo solo. No, it's My Wife.
Oh, isn't that considered like the ultimate John Entwistle song?
Yeah, I mean, it's you don't even think about John Entwistle songs, being part of it. But man, that song is so good. It's so good. It's got some horns on it or whatever, and you go back and forth. But like, I listened to Pinball Wizard until I was done with it. I mean, like, how many times can you air guitar to that stuff?
I was never a huge Who fan, but I got into them a little bit a few years ago. And my wife had bought me tickets to see Quadrophenia live at Barclays Center.
How was that?
One of the greatest experiences of my life was about 12 songs in. It's kind of like the scene from Animal House when they walk into the bar and the music stops and they're all staring at them. It was right at the end of the song, right before the audience is roaring, and you hear my wife go, "Can you play a fucking hit already?" And everybody heard it. I mean, the entire arena heard it.
That's the best, man. That's the best.
I laughed my balls off for days on that.
Wow.
Quadrophenia was such a great album. You had Punk Meets the Godfather. You had 515. You had so many great songs on it.
But if you're not a Who fan, you don't know anything on Quadrophenia until you're about 13 songs in.
They are telling you, hey, we're playing the Quadrophenia album, you know, so
Yeah,
like,
go.
buyer beware. I wouldn't go see Tommy. I think Tommy is just like, it's just garbage.
You couldn't sit through Tommy, Can You Hear Me?
No,
Tommy,
I
can
can't. Even we're not going to take it at this
I like
point. You know, it's not a bad song on its own, but connected to all this, you know, I'm your wicked Uncle Ernie and all that shit. It's a
played by
fiddle about.
Oliver Reed in the movie.
Oh, Oliver Reed, yeah.
Yes.
I watched Lou Reed the other day. I'll tell you about this. I accidentally came on Lou Reed live, and it was like in 1980 or something like that, maybe 82. I don't know. But he opened with he's out there. He's Lou Reed. He's clearly sober. He's clearly, you know, there's no heroin involved. He's not doing all that shit.
Yeah, too
And
bad.
he opened with Sweet Jane.
That's not
And
a
it
bad
was like,
song.
wow, you know, what a great thing. He just wanted to play all that stuff up front, you know. And,
That's what you could have.
Lou
You could have
Reed,
left at that point. Go
yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably.
Sweet Jane, and then we got to sit through all that crap just to get to take a walk on the wild side. Ugh.
He played a real great version of "Waiting for the Man," though, which I do like that tune. And "There She Goes Again." You know, I mean, like, you know, now that Vanessa's gone, I can go ahead and admit it. I like a song that says, "You better hit her." You know, I mean, it's something that you relate to whether you want to or not.
Did you
And
like the Lou Reed collaboration with Metallica when they did the Lulu album?
I couldn't even, I don't even know anything about it. Never heard of it.
Metallica did an album with Lou Reed. So James Hetfield's not singing. It's just Metallica playing and Lou Reed is singing over the song.
Lou Reed doesn't sing; he talks sing.
Right.
Yeah,
But it's so weird hearing this really heavy band and then hearing Lou Reed whisper fucking lyrics over it. It's a very different album.
I would imagine so.
Very.
I never heard Metal Machine music. I hear that that's like this like non-album that he put out to satisfy a contract or something like that. It's out of print. You can't really get Metal Machine music, you know? You know what I'm talking about?
No,
it's all just like machine sounds or something, and it's a big double album. But
Well, he used to do a lot of experimental stuff. Because remember, he was married to Laurie Anderson, and she also did a lot of experimental music. She had like a minor hit called Superman.
I recall some stuff by her. I know that she did something with William S. Burroughs called it's Sharky's Night. Remember that?
No,
It's William S. Burroughs doing this narration, and I remembered it from forever ago, and I looked it up the other day.
shitty 70s stuff right there.
It's shitty 70s stuff right there. Yeah, but you know what? I have to bring this up because when you brought up that new Rolling Stones song, it made me think that Bob Dylan just put out 2 songs. The Kennedy one is not exactly new, but I think this other one's like a totally new song. He had the #1 most downloaded song. It was a 17-minute song.
Oh, because that's what I want to hear. I want to hear nonsensical fucking singing for 17 minutes.
I guess I do. I listened to it a few times. It's the amazing thing about the music is that he confounds you almost every time he comes up with one of these like new kind of like ways of doing things, and that music is like, it's there and it's not there. It's always changing, but it's very repetitive. It's like you can't even put it's like sort of floating around in the ether. I mean, it's a very interesting thing he's doing, and like with a lot of Bob Dylan stuff, I don't like it as well as maybe I could right away, because it's like, damn, I gotta settle into this and see what he's trying to do.
And the backing members of Yes back him up.
Did he really?
No, it's just everyone hates Yes so much.
Oh.
Any combination of Bob Dylan and Yes would really drive him off the beat.
Oh. Why don't you just throw Primus into the fucking mix too?
Yeah. What was that album that Yes did? 90125 or something like that. It was a big 80s album. It had Owner of a Lonely Heart.
Yeah, the only good song they ever did.
Leave It. That's when I got into Yes. I never really, I didn't know anything about their previous stuff at the time. But
You're not missing much, my friend.
It was Hooky Ear Candy. You never heard Owner of a Lonely Heart?
Of course I did. It's the only song I know.
No, Jeffrey.
Jeffrey,
you saying you? Oh, okay.
No, he likes them. He has to defend Yes every episode.
I like somebody to defend.
Listen to Heart of the Sunrise. Just listen to Heart of the Sunrise and tell me what you think.
Do I need a spare half hour to do it, or is it like?
All you need Heart of the Sunrise is about 11 minutes.
Okay.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
epic, but not that epic. It's the same as like when the music's over or the end.
You love a great percussion section. Rhythm section between the bass of Chris Squire and the drumming of Alan White. It's insanely great.
And two, we had to sort of start questioning at some point, like, okay, the Ramones happened and all that stuff. So, what do you have better to do than like sit and listen to an 11-minute song, especially right now?
Yeah.
So
It's the perfect
I'll check
time
it out.
for it.
What's it called again?
Heart of the Sunrise.
All right.
Just
If
a
you told me it was
find that.
Armadillo's asshole, I would never fucking ever see that song. Heart of the
What about-
Sunrise. Now I gotta download. I'm gonna download it while we're on the phone.
Thank
Let me float a song for you, Jeffrey, and see if you know this one. It's Kevin Ayers, Lunatic's Lament.
Why? I've heard of it. I don't think I know it though.
It's like the best guitar soloing. Most of the song is just like really blistering guitar solo, and it's a couple of guitars, and they're picking up where the other one leaves off and shit like that. And I'm not a Kevin Ayers fan or anything like that because like the rest of it just doesn't sound like that. But it is a really nasty sounding song, really good.
All right.
So that would be my and I still have to write that down because I'm really forgetful.
Well,
I'll ask you when we're not on anymore recording so that I don't look like a total dickhead.
well,
Only half a dickhead.
we're finishing strong here tonight.
Yes.
Yeah. Look, man, you got to leave it to the middle-aged guys to really bring it. All right. Now I have to wait. I said I would.
Yes. All right, fellas. This has been great. Pat, again, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Absolutely.
And I'll hope to talk to you again soon.
Sean, we will see you soon. This will be up
Tomorrow.
so you guys can check it out, share it. We'd love it. Guys, thank you very much. We have some great shows coming up for everybody. Take care. Be well. We'll see you soon.